Hello, I'm Tim Robinson, Editor-in-Chief of AEROSPACE, and with me this month is Deputy Editor Steve Bridgewater.
Hi, guys.
And Features Editor Bella Richards.
Hello.
Welcome to AEROSPACE NOTAM, another edition of our podcast looking at global aviation, aerospace and space news and what we have upcoming in the next issue, the next issue of AEROSPACE, November 2025. In the magazine, we cover everything from GA to spaceflight, from airliners to airports, from air law to eVTOLs. Got lots of news to get through. It's a cracking issue and there's lots of exciting stuff coming up. But before we get on to that, this episode of the Royal Aeronautical Society podcast is proudly supported by Xometry, the AI-driven global manufacturing marketplace from CNC machining and 3D printing to sheet metal and injection molding. Xometry helps aerospace professionals like you turn designs into precision parts quickly and at scale. To learn more and get an instant quote, visit www.xometry.uk. So nice to have a sponsor there. Big thanks to Xometry for sponsoring this episode. We're going to start off with the usual round where have we been? What have we been up to? Who wants to start with that? Shall I go with that?
Yeah, you start. Editor-in-Chief's privilege.
So the week I was at the RAF Club for a film premiere. Frank Whittle, Genius in the Family. That was a documentary. Put together. It's about an hours-long documentary on Sir Frank Whittle, inventor of the jet engine. Really good documentary. Good to see Ian Whittle, his son, there, who is he's getting on a bit. I think it's safe to say he's getting on a bit. He's still flying. He's still flying a Piper Archer about. He's still in the air.
Good man.
But really good film. Really brilliant stuff, and also not about the inspirational thing, the history of it, the jet engine, but also the personal struggles that Frank Whittle went through, and the backstabbing, the shenanigans that went on, in bringing the jet engine to life. Frank was this brilliant engineer, innovator, foresaw the future. And then there was all this kind of politics that kind of got wrapped up to him, with the jet engine. So really good film, and great to see sort of Ian and other people there.
And there's some good interviews, weren't there? There was some good interviewees. I mean, we've got our very own Carissa Khan, past president of the society. I think you got Richard Noble was there as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Richard Noble, and also Frank Whittle's great grandson, who is studying at Cambridge.
There you go.
Engineering
with the Whittle Lab.
Yes, with the Whittle Lab.
Fantastic.
Yes. So
is the documentary going to be available anywhere?
It's going to be released in early 2026, March in 2026.
So this was like a pre-screening.
So this was a preview, premiere. But it's up for awards as well. So watch out for that in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Steve?
Cool.
Where have you been to?
I've had a week off. Had a rare week away from the office. I went over to Norfolk and met up with a very old friend of mine. As I've said before on the podcast, I've been doing this 25 years now. The first editor who gave me a job was somebody called Ken Delve, who was editor-in-chief at Key Publishing at the time. Ken is now working at RAF West Raynham, the former RAF West Raynham, for an organisation called Veterans Central. So I went over to see their station HQ that they're renovating. Amazing facility. So it's the old, the original interwar station headquarters, typical RAF building, was left in the early 90s, went into disrepair. And what they're doing is renovating this for use as a community hub for veterans, but not just Air Force veterans. They've got Navy, Army, but also fire service, police, people who've served. But what I really like that they're doing is the veterans themselves are doing the renovations. So you've got people coming in, either working in their old trade, so they've got a Hawker Hunter there, and they've got a cockpit of an English Electric Canberra PR9, and they've got all sorts of different things. But whether people want to come in and make cakes, whether they want to come in for just to attend for one of their regular breakfasts that they do, whether they want to actually come in and work on the building or on the aeroplane or whatever it happens to be, and it's all voluntary funded. And they've been up and running now for just over 2 years. The building is looking great. They've even got sensory gardens outside, so some people are coming in to do the gardens. But they're now reaching 900 veterans a year. And so so have a look online for Veterans Central, which is Station HQ, and look at what they're
Mhm.
doing, because it's just really inspirational to see people. I mean, and veterans of all ages. So you've got veterans that have served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and then right the way back to Cold War veterans as well, and some in their 90s. But finding a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. When we were there were a couple of chaps who'd recently been widowed, and they would turn up every time the centre was open and sit round the log burner and have a piece of cake and a chat and talk about the old days. So, really good.
Fantastic.
That's very
So,
cool.
on a similar theme, more sort of service aviation type events. But I was out at our Stevenage branch, combined Luton and Stevenage branch lecture a couple of weeks back, and that had a lecture from the Chief of the Air Staff. So Hob Smith there, Air Chief Marshal, one of his first, really sort of public outings, I suppose, doing a lecture there, packed out, sold out kind of lecture. Great to see lots of the apprentices there from MBDA. That's where it was held, and Chief of the Air Staff, Harv, they're going through his priorities for the Air Force, but also it was the Leslie Bennett Memorial Lecture. And for those not in the know, Leslie Bennett was sort of like a kind of pioneer in radar, electronic warfare, and also satellites. So fits in perfectly with some of the stuff that sort of Harv was talking about, electronic warfare, missiles, and space as well. Ending up, and that sort of ties in obviously with Whittle as well, with Harv asking, kind of where are the Frank Whittles, where are the RJ Mitchells, where are the Sidney Cams, where are the next generation of these people who, these engineers who built the future. So that was really good. And then also this week at the Society, we've had our careers fair. So that happened yesterday. That was another packed sellout event. Great to see, kind of the building filled with young and kind of older people, looking for careers. We had Airbus, we had Boeing, we had a popular stand there from Team Tempest, BAE Systems, 2XL, Ryanair also there. I think that's probably one of the first times I've sort of seen Ryanair. They're looking for engineers, it was really heartening to see how enthusiastic. I mean, you turn up there. There's 2 sessions. The building's entirely full. And there's queues around the block. You're out there in the morning, and there's queues around the block of people desperate to get in. So no, that was great.
Yes, good to see.
And Steve, you and me, we sat down as the president's club. No, we've got a report in this issue. But that was a fantastic day.
Yeah, we'll touch on that later on in the pod when we talk about the articles that are in the magazine. But it was a great 2-day conference. The president gets to choose their theme for their conference for their presidential year, and Alistair Woods this year, people in aerospace. So looking at a variety of topics, wasn't it, Tim? So recruitment, retention, EDI, the impact of AI on employment in the future. Some really interesting sessions.
Yeah, and good contributions also there from a young person's panel. But we'll get to that later. So what have we spotted in the news? What's caught our eyes in the news? Who wants to kick off with that in what's been happening in the past month?
Johnny,
It's been a busy month.
Yes. Wait, before we start, I'll cut this out. Is everyone's internet connection good? Because you guys are insanely blurry. And at one point, Steve, you were cutting out a lot.
Yeah, that was happening for me.
Sorry,
Steve was. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
It said it's stable. I'm on 5G, so
okay.
Don't know what to do.
Luckily, even though both of your videos really blurry, luckily your voices are for the most part fine. So, anyway,
shall I turn the camera off? Would that help?
I guess you don't need to, but
don't.
Let's say bandwidth, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's camera off at this end.
But if it's
Okay.
recording locally, Bella, it won't make any difference, will it?
Yeah, no, it should be fine. It should, it usually says like it gets the best persons, like whoever has the best internet while someone else is
Okay.
crashing. It should be fine. But,
Okay.
you know, worst case. Anyways, all right, I'll
Right.
go back into it.
So, okay. So, what have we caught the eyes? What's caught everyone's eyes in the news this month? Who wants to lead off?
I
Bella,
can
that's
lead
good of
it.
you. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I've been a bit silent the last few minutes. Yes, so I'm sure people have seen the news with Sierra Space's Dream Chaser kind of shifting gears a little bit. So if you've been following this company, they were planning to send, well, I guess do a demonstration flight initially, but go to the ISS and hopefully become one of the other commercial spacecraft to be doing resupply missions like Dragon and Cygnus. But in a turn of events that I think a lot of people were expecting, it's not doing that anymore. It's now conducting a free-flying demonstration flight to orbit. So initially it had like 7 contracted flights to the ISS, and it was going to be kind of part of the rotation. And I remember at the time when that was announced, a lot of people were kind of like, what's the point to like involving in an entirely new spacecraft when, you know, there's a planned deorbit in only a few years. And so people were really unsure, especially because it hadn't even had its first flight. And as we know, things in space often get delayed. And so now, as I think people would have imagined happen, now it's shifted gears. And yeah, it's just going to be doing a free flying demonstration flight first. So it's not actually, in fact, NASA said it is now no longer obligated for a specific number of resupply missions, and instead will base its decision on a successful demo flight by Dream Chaser, which has been pushed to 2026. So there's a, I guess, good and bad aspect of this. Obviously, the bad is that, you know, I'm sure Dream Chaser would have liked to, I guess, be held by its previous contract, because that would have been really good for the company, like a massive vote of confidence, especially, you know, like we've had Dragon, we've had Cygnus, and even just a new player in the field would have been really good. But I guess in the perspective of the ISS, for a little while there was a bit of a cargo supply shortage, but now that's been fixed. Like NASA previously faced a bit of a shortfall in cargo capacity, but the return of Cygnus missions using the new extra large version, which obviously has greater payload capability. And then, of course, last week, Japan's first HTV-X cargo spacecraft launching to the ISS has kind of filled in the gap. So the need for Dream Chaser was slightly less. So at least in one sense, you know, it's kind of, they've both filled the position and the need for Dream Chaser is less. So with this kind of shift, Dream Chaser has said they are wanting to have more applications for defense. So I think, what was her name? Fatih Osman, executive chair at AEROSPACE, said Dream Chaser represents the future of versatile space transportation and mission flexibility. The transition provides unique capabilities to meet the needs of diverse mission profiles, including emerging and existential threats and national security priorities that align with our acceleration into the defense tech market. So it seems that they're kind of shifting a little bit to be more available for defense applications. And yeah, I guess because it won't be ready in time for ISS applications, the space plane could, you know, technically carry heavy payloads and land on a runway for sensitive cargo and, you know, national security payloads and so on. So yeah.
So do you think that the fact that NASA is insisting on a so obviously you've got the timeline crunch there, but also that do you think that NASA is insisting on a free flying mission that's something out of Starliner? Their experience with Starliner is we don't want this thing docking a new vehicle, docking with the ISS until you guys can make sure that the thing's sort of safe.
No, absolutely. And in fact, from what I've read, Dream Chaser's propulsion system hasn't even been completely certified. So I think they want it to be, they don't want another Starliner. That was like you know, a terrible PR situation for the space, for the, you know, space industry. And so something so soon after, I mean, obviously Dream Chaser is a bit of a different approach, but either way, I definitely think they want to avoid a Starliner situation. But I am
Brilliant.
interested, and I think Dream Chaser has I think they have a real future, luckily, in a lot more commercial applications as well. They're definitely, it's not like completely bad news. I think
Right.
it's, it's just as the ISS approaches its eventual end, there's only so much they can keep adding on to the systems already in place. So, yeah, I really do hope that Dream Chaser is successful, especially in its demo flight. But yeah, we'll watch this
Okay.
space, I guess.
Steve, what have you
Literally.
got for us?
I've got a quick one. Wind races. We've spoken about wind races often on the pod, and we've followed this British success story for quite a while now in the magazine, based obviously out of a Southampton University project. Their Ultra drone, cargo drone, in operation around the world now. But wind races have got the first approval now for international flight from the UK airspace into another FIR. So this is from the Shetland Islands to Norway. So they've received UK CAA permission to do this, and it's a 235-mile flight over water. So each time they do this, they need to put a danger area in place to do that. And so we've heard in the past not criticism, but feedback that the UK CAA is very slow at approving this for BV loss, so beyond visual line of sight flights. And it's again, it seems that it's a one step at a time, incremental growth in the capacity, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. So progress there. So BV loss. I mean, that's the sort of seen as the holy grail for unlocking the full drone economy. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So on the defence side of things, it's been another busy month. Trying to sort of drill down on the biggest news, but I think one of the biggest news for me at least is Sweden and Ukraine. Ukraine has signed, Sweden and Ukraine have signed an LOI for 100 to 150 Gripen-Es. So this was a high-level visit by Zelensky to Sweden in late October, letter of intent. Now, this isn't a contract; it's not a firm deal, but it's basically saying, Gripen-E is the top priority to re-equip the kind of Ukrainian Air Force as a medium to long-term plan to replace the frontline fighter force. And obviously, Gripen-E. It's got the ACE, it's got the advanced electronic warfare, it's got ISRT, it's got and it's got weapons such as Meteor, small diameter bombs, loads of things sort of kind of cleared on it, and it is it's one of they're not just getting kind of hand-me-down F-16s here, so big game changer there, I think, for. Ukraine,
Yeah.
but it is the medium.
And it's NATO compliant as well, isn't it? So
Yeah.
looking to the future with Ukraine's aspirations, I think having like you, I was a little surprised that it was Gripen-E. I was expecting the announcement to be hand me down older airframes, or even whereas the Gripen-E came as a bit of a surprise for me, but a great for a potential post-war Ukrainian air force.
And also, I mean, if they go for the full amount of 150 that's been talked about, I mean, that's Sweden's only buying 60 plus of the Gripen-Es, so Ukraine could in 10 years' time have one of the strongest air forces in Europe in that respect. What else from you, Bella?
I realize another space one. Actually, they're all going to be space ones. So
nothing wrong with that.
Deal with it. This one's more of a startup spot of a Californian startup called Inversion Space. And so they recently revealed their ARC spacecraft. And this spacecraft is slated to make same-hour global delivery a reality. So this 4-foot by 6-foot arc is going to be like the world's first orbital delivery vehicle. And so it's going to be able to drop about 500 pounds of cargo to almost any point on Earth in less than an hour, according to the company. So basically, the concept is that the spacecraft is going to be like parked in low Earth orbit. And I was reading up, and I think it's like for a few years, and it'll just wait for a signal to re-enter the atmosphere, and then it'll use its lifting body design to steer towards its destination and then parachute to the drop zone. And specifically, I assume there'll be it'll be used for a lot of applications, but so far they've made it sound like the system could be used to deliver supplies to a battlefield or aid to a disaster zone cut off from traditional supply, so definitely more in the defense realm. So the company revealed the new spacecraft at its factory in Los Angeles. And yeah, so it comes recently. So they had a demo spacecraft called Ray, and that actually launched with SpaceX's Transporter 12 mission in January. And it was intended to fly in space and then perform a deorbit burn and land off the coast of California. But the company was unable to make a controlled landing. But the company said it, demonstrated the capability to raise and lower its orbit. And they feel confident in the Arc spacecraft. So that's actually intended to launch by the end of 2026. So I'm really curious about this type of technology. What were you going to say, Tim?
So I'm curious as well, and I'm curious as well as to. I mean, it sounds like a cool idea, doesn't it? Amazon door to door from space, get your packages from orbit. But I'm just curious as to the amount of the constellation you'd have to have in orbit to kind of guarantee this. An hour. And also the long-term stuff, if you're thinking about things like, medical supplies, a lot of stuff in medical supplies goes off. Kind of medicines, so they have an expiry date, and things like food and things like that. So how much can you put into orbit that is going to stay there
for a few years?
For a few years, so it seems a cool concept, but I'm a little bit sort of I've got questions about the kind of the kind of business plan or the operational model a little bit. But having said that, there are now lots of companies who are looking at point to point, point to point delivery from space, get stuff there fast. Maybe not have a constellation of things in orbit waiting to drop down, but one to watch.
Well, there's also a capacity issue there as well, isn't it? Because you're not going to get a lot in a 4-foot by 6-foot device. As you said,
I thought that too. Because if it's up there for a few years, I'm not sure like what they're thinking with like refilling the stock. Like, are they going to send a spacecraft to refill and come back down? Like, I don't fully know that. I don't think they've actually revealed that much of the logistics of it. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, these ambitions are very exciting. They're very cool things to talk about. But yeah, the logistics of it, I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Steve, we've got our front cover. Obviously, we'll get to that later, and the big news from Emirates. But you've got a story there about how they're expanding their training.
Yeah, I've got Emirates news. Obviously, we are heading off to the Dubai Air Show in a couple of weeks as we record this podcast. And just ahead of that, Emirates have opened 2 new training centres in Dubai, an $8 million cabin crew centre of excellence, and also a $135 million pilot training centre. So great facilities here. The pilot training centre is looking at increasing their capacity by more than half, so 54% increase in capacity for pilots for both the A350 and the 777X, which is coming online fairly soon. But the one that really caught my eye was the cabin crew training centre, because they're looking here at Michelin-starred restaurants as their inspiration. So obviously we're familiar with Emirates and their high levels of customer care. But bringing people through, looking at fine dining, how to interact with guests in the same way that you would in a Michelin-starred restaurant. But interestingly, so this opened in September. They are hoping to have 10,000 cabin crew trained in this centre by the end of this year. within
Wow.
3 months. There's a
Mhm.
massive turnover coming through that. But yeah, it'll be. I'm hoping we get to learn more about this out at the Dubai Air Show, because I think this is an interesting way to elevate the cabin crew training to another level.
Yeah, I wonder whether also how much is that driven. In terms of rivalry with kind of airlines in the Gulf, we've obviously had Qatar Airways there as the world's, what do they call it? World's first 6-star airline, or they were going for the quality. But now you've got new entrants like Riyadh Air. I wonder whether that is part of the Emirates plan going forward. Is not only the massive global network, the new aircraft, but also here's how we're going to keep ahead of the competitors.
Yeah.
Is basically get our chemistry, which are already great. They've already got fantastic customer service. So anyone's we've flown with Emirates, but actually take it to the next level, and kind of just sort of keep ahead of the competition, which they've been doing for past 4 decades. All right,
Absolutely.
so over to me. I've got some bad news really. For again, we've seen a lot of sustainable aviation projects, ideas, aircraft in a little bit of trouble at kind of at the moment. Funds running out. Latest one, unfortunately, to have problems was Volt Aero with their hybrid electric Casio. Founder there is Jean Botti. He is former CTO of Airbus, and they were placed in administration in October, early October. Through no fault of their own, one of their investors hit funding problems. And now they've got until the end of November to come up with a sort of restructuring plan. They were hoping to make its first flight in 2026. So the Casio 330, it had a bit of a redesign. They got rid of the kind of twin boom. But one of those things where, and also it's kind of tied in with the investor landscape in Europe in a sense of everyone's sort of kind of scrabbling for funding, and you think maybe if they're in the US, some kind of venture capitalists would just go, yeah, here, have some money. You've got a product, it looks viable, let's get you over the finish line. Whereas in Europe, it's far more difficult. If you think of the example also of Lilium in Germany, they were trying to go to the Bavarian government. Bavarian government said no, didn't want to invest.
Yeah.
Lilium were making the case that, hey, this could be you could be investing in investing in the advanced air mobility version of Airbus. So it's a lot more difficult, I think, to get investors, get money on board in Europe than it is in the US. And so fingers crossed for Jean and Voltero. It's hybrid electric, point-to-point travel, regional air mobility. So hopefully they can get a restructuring plan. Hopefully they can get a new investor in, and they can get sorted out. We can see it fly.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I think it's me.
Bella? Yeah, go.
Yeah. Sorry.
Another space story.
Surprise, surprise. It's just like me, but with Steve's GA mind space.
How very dare you? I don't have a GA story this week. Yes.
Really? There you go. Okay, sorry. Back to the news. The European Space Agency has awarded Italian rocket developer Avio, so they work on the Vega, the Ariane, all that jazz, 40 million euros for 24 months to develop a reusable upper stage demonstrator. The interesting part about this story, and I think it got more traction than normal, is because the image that they produced of the kind of concept is very similar to Starship. And the image is in the magazine. But so basically, the announcement took place in September during the International Aeronautical Congress in Sydney, Australia. So this funding will go towards, I guess, assessing the requirements, design, technology for ground and flight segments for for what it needs for a reusable upper stage demonstrator. The contract is part of the second phase of ESA's plan to operate reusable rocket technology. I actually remember the first phase in March 2024 came out, and there was like an intermediate phase as well, but nothing's come out of this. So this is kind of the step forward where they officially chose Avio. There was no information, I believe, of other like competitors or anything. They've just kind of come out with this. And so, yeah, the graphic of kind of the concept of the demonstrator shows a solid rocket booster. So it's a P120C as the first stage, which is used to power the Vega C and as strap-on boosters for the Ariane 6 rocket. And yeah, it's under a very Starship-like reusable upper stage. So Avio said that it'll kind of draw on its expertise with its, liquid propulsion systems for the project. And yeah, so I think actually since then, also since we published the magazine on 16th of October, so they're kind of definitely broadening out the ecosystem of this whole plan of a reusable upper stage. ESA awarded a company, which I'm going to butcher the name, Ingegneria dei Sistemi. I'm sorry if that's terrible. And they are designing the rocket stage recovery vessel as part of the contract, obviously, as Avio develops the actual reusable upper stage. A lot of people were reading this news incorrectly. They were saying 40 million, that's nothing. This is why Europe's not doing well in the reusable rocket sector. But something to clarify is this is not necessarily to build the rocket. It's simply to develop the design and a demonstrator and so forth. So it's not necessarily the actual program itself. So just want to clarify. Obviously, I think a bit more money will go into.
So the key question here is I mean, Europe has been, it's no secret, Europe has been lagging behind in the reusable stuff. We've had other reusable kind of ideas before. It's never really kind of got off the ground. I mean, they were even, Europe was even throwing some money reaction engines way, and they'd validated so there was some sort of thing there. Well, could Skylon become a a European type launcher, reusable? That ship has sailed. But can they catch up? Where do they go from here in terms of reusability?
Yeah. I think it's hard
given also as well as SpaceX, we've got Blue Origin. We've got everything coming out of China.
Yeah. I know Europe has really lagged in this space, but the frustrating thing is, on one hand, a lot of people are saying, like, why even try? We've already got Starship. Why copy? Like, what's the point? But then on the other hand, everyone's complaining that Europe's not doing anything. So it's a bit tricky. I guess the good thing is they're not just starting from scratch with like random technology. They're obviously using what they already have. But I don't know. Time will tell with this type of thing, because I think I'm not surprised they're definitely going forth with actually making a reusable upper stage demonstrator, because despite there being SpaceX, as we know, you can't always rely on foreign, like you need to. Our space industry loves to have sovereign capability. I know it's a buzzword, but it's a buzzword that it's so common, but it is true. Like, they want to have it here, and we'll see. I really hope it works out. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, Steve, what have you got for us?
I haven't got a GA story actually this month, just for clarification. I have got a China story though. We talked there about advances that China are making. We talked about perhaps some of the hurdles that are in place for getting products into place quite quickly in the UK and in Europe. And we've talked about some of these high flying ideas such as this space delivery. China has had a great idea, in my opinion, and they've put it into process really, really quickly. It's from a Beijing company called Source Energy, which is SAWES, Source Energy. And they've come up with a flying wind turbine. So we know that we're seeing wind turbines sprouting up all over the world now. These big carbon fiber composite turbines, some say a blot on the landscape. What Soars have done is created effectively an annular flying wing. So imagine like a big circular kite,
Yeah.
which creates a 130-foot diameter duct. Now they float that up on a line like a big kite. Now, within that duct, there are 12 generators that can produce a megawatt of power. So obviously, the advantage of having this on a big cable is twofold. One, they can float it as high or as low as they want to get the best winds. So you find the highest winds, which could be at 2,000 feet, could be at 5,000 feet, wherever it happens to be. But they also then run the power that's generated back down that cable to the ground. And they're saying the cost of producing a megawatt is 30% less than conventional wind turbine masts.
Mm.
But I think what the real use for this potentially is we talked about natural disasters and getting
Yes.
material in from that space station in the sky that's going to do our delivery. You can road this to wherever you need it to be, float it up as a kite, and you've got instant power.
Yeah.
And so they've got this into service really very, very quickly. I mean, there's all sorts of applications to this, as there always is with equipment that comes out of China. But I think from a purely humanitarian point of view, this is a great, great product. Yeah, a megawatt of power on demand.
Mhm.
Excellent. No, really good idea anyway. So, yeah, and, airship, is it an airship? Is it a blimp? Discuss.
Well, it kind of, it's kind of got that it's like a hollow blimp, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, or more of a kite, I would say.
More of a kite.
Mhm.
Okay. So, over to me. I've got a space story. Well, there's a lot of space stuff happening. Big one really, and it's all related. It is NASA is now talking about opening up the lunar landing contest. Again, they'd already chosen SpaceX for human landing system. Using Starship, but the acting administrator there had said that he wanted to throw it open and invite other companies in. And now Blue Origin is obviously making a lunar lander, Uncrewed One. They've also got the kind of follow-on there as well. But from the sound of it, and reading between the lines, they are now. It seems as though there is a high-level push into how do we beat China back to the moon. China is going to get there first. You can imagine that there might be some pressure from the White House to get there faster. So now they're looking at options as to can SpaceX get there fast. I mean, SpaceX is obviously it moved fast. It's been getting Starship, iterating Starship tests pretty quickly. Those have to refuel in orbit. They've still got to do the refueling in orbit bit, which they haven't done yet. And there's also concerns as well. Things like lunar spacesuits has been falling behind schedule as well. So it seems that there is a big push there on and this is a prestige thing now. And interestingly, it seemed to have shifted the dial from what the policy was. We're going to go back there. It's not going to be an Apollo one-off. We're going back there to stay, to get there quick. And if you know your space history, and some listeners may know that one of the original names for Mercury in the early days of the space race was man in space soonest. So related information to that, and it's just come out in the last couple of days actually. Jared Isaacman is back as he's been re-nominated by Donald Trump. His nomination was pulled earlier on. And he's now in the frame for being the new NASA chief. So he's got a lot of support there. There's been some criticism that he'd been too close to SpaceX, but he is, as he's done he's passionate about space. He was the first commercial spacewalk. And he's got a plan. He seems to be. He's got an idea of the whole thing of the between the US flip flopping between Moon and Mars, which you do. His view, I think, is the US has the resources to do both.
Yeah.
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 We should do both, and NASA should go into it, should lean into to being this agency that pushes the boundaries, pushes the
Yeah.
frontiers, goes above
Yeah.
and beyond the whole kind of a thing like that. And I think he also hit read between the lines as well. He was, I think, one of the things also that why he was denominated was he put up some opposition to the whole sort of science aspect of NASA being gutted. Maybe there's something there that science will come back, albeit maybe in a slightly different focus on maybe relying more on the commercial sector. So, for example,
Yeah.
if you think about all the commercial imagery sats in orbit now, could you be taking data off some of those and relying more on those to provide your Earth science data? Don't know. But
I
I
think
think it's been seen as good news anyway, but particularly as
Yeah.
though the previous acting administrator, Sean Duffy, was talking about folding NASA into the Department of Transportation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I truly think this was the first really good news actually for NASA specifically, you know, in a governmental lens. I think this is a really good move. I honestly think if Isaac Min wasn't re-nominated, I don't know. If you've been on X lately, the amount, I think there was even a hashtag like, oh, I'm trying to remember what it was. Something about Jared Isaacman, like re-nominate him. That's definitely not what the hashtag was. But there was like this real community like outcry for him to be re-nominated, because I think everyone's frustration with Sean Duffy is that, number one, he was only supposed to be an acting administrator, yet it seemed like he was getting really comfortable in his position, and it didn't seem like there was much effort to find a replacement. But I think everyone's gripe with him, which it was warranted, was that his knowledge on space was very little. Department of Transportation is different. And whereas Jared obviously has quite a vast history. He was a pilot. He was, he's a commercial astronaut, and he has a really great vision for the industry. So I think that's what's really needed. And I think honestly, this move was a good vote of confidence, even for the space industry. I think we needed someone who has good, like, people like him. He's likable. I think we needed that. We needed like that kind of PR face.
I think the crucial thing with Jared, he's an enthusiast. We know that enthusiasts are good for our industry. So having somebody at the helm who has that passion, that drive, that interest in space, aerospace, and aviation, I think it would be great. Any man who flies his own private jets is a good man by me. And by private jets, I mean Alpha jets and MiG-29s.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to go and take a break now. We'll go over to our regular segment of the podcast, Specialist Group Insight. So join us after the break.
Hello again, and welcome to the Specialist Group Insight segment of the podcast. I'm Seth Moffat, chair of the Flight Operations Specialist Group within the Society, and it's a real pleasure to have you listening today. A few weeks ago, a Ryanair 737 found itself in a difficult situation after two weather-related diversions. The crew landed with very little fuel remaining, enough to make headlines, but more importantly, to raise some real questions about how we make operational decisions when everything starts to tighten up on us. We're not here today to dissect that incident. It's still under investigation, but to use it as a starting point to talk about what sits underneath events like this, the systems we operate in, the decisions pilots make, the way technology, design, and human performance all interact when margins start to get really thin on us. And to help unpack some of this, I'm joined by two fellows of the Society and members of the Flight Ops Group, both with enormous experience in this space. And they are Captain Shem Malmquist and Captain Steve Green. Steve is a veteran airline captain, safety investigator, and flight operations specialist who's career spans from early commuter aircraft to large airline operations with TWA and American. He's taken part in major accident investigations, including TWA 800, and has played a key role in safety and certification research with the FAA. Steve continues to support the FAA's aircraft icing research and development program, and is widely respected for his deep understanding of how operational practice connects to system design and regulation. And Shem is a recently retired Boeing 777 captain and has had a long career in international commercial aviation operations. He's a visiting professor at the Florida Institute of Technology and a recognized authority on human factors and system safety. He's also contributed to several major accident investigations, bringing expertise in operations, systems, and human performance. Shem's also the co-author of Angle of Attack and Grounded, which explore how complex systems and human decisions shape modern aviation safety. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. It's great to have you.
Good morning.
Thank you.
So, taking a recent event like the Ryanair diversion, when these things come along, they kind of renew our attention a little bit on how quickly an operational plan can unravel on us. What does that suggest about the resilience of current flight ops planning models? I mean, are today's fuel and alternate planning requirements sufficient for increasingly unpredictable weather and operational complexity and so on?
Well, it certainly raises these questions. The issue I see, I go back to my time spent in flight operations management, where I was on the other side, working in our operations control center, helping solve these issues as the, I guess you could say, the resident expert during those types of events. And in general, it tells you that there's some real gaps that happened here. And some of them, I think, are related to the need for the operations center to be very, very proactive in being able to preserve the big picture, whilst the flight crews are more focused. And of course, they can try, and they should be aware as much as possible for the big picture. Their ability to do so in real time is often more limited because they are really busy with other tasks. Whereas the operations control center, that's literally their job and putting it out there. And at this point, the area I would add, which is something that Steve Green has really advocated, which is what the pilot's knowledge should be before the flight. So I'll hand it to Steve, because that's really brilliant, I think.
Yeah, I think there's that Ryanair situation brought to mind a couple of experiences that I've had, but I'll start by just making my argument that if, as the captain and the first officer as well, you do a thorough review of what the weather situation is going to be, and that involves a lot more than just reading the TAFs, so forth. You really need to get into things like, at least in the States here, we have access to the forecaster's discussion, which are literally person-to-person notes that the local forecaster writes down about what's going on. Lots of resources out there so that you have a really good sense of what the weather picture is and what the probabilities are. And then you're going to look at your flight plan with that in mind, and you may or may not add fuel, or you may discuss different alternates with the company, but you're going to be very proactive with this from the start. And then as the situation develops, you're going to be in a much better position to see where it's going and when you need to make a decision about diverting or something of that nature. Now, the problem you have is, even after you do all that homework, you run into obviously two big issues. One is the weather itself, which is somewhat fickle and can be a little bit unpredictable, but you can do pretty well with researching that. I mean, you can stay ahead of that fairly well. The other issue is the ATC problem. And that has to do with how much traffic they have and how many people are diverting and where the weather is, and they can get saturated really easily. And that is tough to navigate. For example, I remember coming out of a hold in Dallas with basically, if we didn't leave the hold in the next few minutes, we were going to have to divert. So we ended up, the controller took us out of the hold and started vectoring us for the approach, except we had no idea how long he was going to take to do that. So that puts you in a really tough spot where you just don't know where things are at. And I think that's where a certain amount of proactive management is necessary as well. You really have to be ready to make a decision that, okay, if we're done, we're going to need to divert, recognizing that diversion itself is going to take some time and be complicated.
Playing the devil's advocate for a moment, I mean, saying that an aircraft landed at an airport with 6 minutes of fuel and so on and so forth makes great headline news. But really, at its essence, this crew were intending to go to one destination, had diverted again and held, if I'm not mistaken, and gone to a third destination. So they were actually burning into contingency fuel anyway, which is what it's there for. So would it be fair to say, I know we don't know the results of the investigation yet, but would it be fair to say that this is what that fuel was intended for? I know it was cut a bit thin at the end, but that's what it was. That's why they had it.
Well, I would argue that the contingency that fuel is for is the contingency that you can't see coming. And that's not the diversion. Things like diversions we know about. So the idea is to get to the destination, the diversion point, whatever that airport is, get there with 45 minutes or 30, whatever your rules require of reserve fuel, because that's there for when the gear doesn't come down. I mean, the things that you just can't foresee, the things that you can see, you need to manage. Don't touch that contingency fuel, because it's going to come in handy if something really goes wrong.
Yeah, that's what it's there for, the completely unexpected. I suppose you're quite right. In our line of work, a diversion is not an unusual circumstance. I would say that we don't do them. Ideally, we don't want to do them, but it wouldn't be something unusual.
Right.
And tell me, is there a way that maybe meteorological experience or expertise could be better injected into the industry? It always strikes me that, for example, as a pilot, we need to know a little bit about air law, but we're not lawyers. We need to know a little bit about aerodynamics, but we're not physicists. We need to know a little bit about meteorology, but we're not meteorologists. And when I walk around the airline flight ops building, I see people, training managers and dispatch managers and so on and so forth, but you don't see a meteorologist. So is there a component missing there? Should we have more expertise on board to look at these issues? Or do you consider the sort of level of training that we have, or the level of expertise that we have in operations now adequate?
I would argue we definitely should have more. And of course, Steve and I are both a little bit unusual that we've been immersed in meteorology just out of our own interest partially, and I guess, being connected to some accidents that involved this. But there is an absolute lack of information available. Now, the airlines, most of them do employ meteorologists, and they have them there. They just don't really use them I've never seen them brief pilots and integrate that. And that could be really, really a powerful thing. They do work with the Operations Control Center. And in the States, of course, on the other side, air traffic control for the centers do have a center weather service unit that is staffed with National Weather Service meteorologists, and that is of course, really helpful in terms of making decisions. But it's still, I would say, an area that is probably more than any other lacking in terms of the training environment and how pilots are trained. I think we do an okay job on aerodynamics, not great, I would say. And the same with systems and a lot of these other things. We spend most of our time on trying to follow checklists and procedural compliance. And that in itself is a whole can of worms. And I'll hand that to Steve because I know that's a soapbox item for him.
Well, the meteorology thing, I would argue it's less a matter of pilots becoming meteorologists or being capable of meteorological forecasting and this sort of thing. It's much more important that they be able to read and interpret what the meteorologist has said and have access to that. And unfortunately, particularly today with a lot of the new apps and so forth that we have going on, there's a lot of filtering that occurs between the meteorologist and the pilot. And one of my arguments has been to try to cut that out, to get rid of that so that you can look directly at what the meteorology people are saying, unfiltered. And you need to know how to interpret that. But you don't need to be able to generate your own forecast. I mean, that's, maybe a step too far. But
Yeah.
you need to be able to read it and understand what they're saying.
It's an interesting point, actually. I know certainly in the operation that I'm involved in, when we cross the Atlantic, actually, if I go back, not that long ago, really, we got all of our weather by volnets. We would write it all down and things like that. And then progressively along came AEROSPACE, so we would send away for METARs and TAFs for diversion alternates out over the Atlantic, and we would interpret those. And nowadays, a simple glance at the iPad on the Jeppesen, the FD Pro app, for example, you can see each of the alternates and they're color coded green or red or yellow. So in some cases, it's a quick glance at the iPad app now, and you can put your finger on that and have the weather come up and so on. So the tools themselves are changing; they're becoming a little bit more dynamic. And we still have, you will still find some crew members will prefer to go to the AEROSPACE and pull up, METARs and TAFs. But a lot of crew nowadays, I find, would rather just look at a graphic. And see it right there in real time.
And yet I'll add to that my favorite note in a forecaster's discussion when he gets to the aviation discussion and is talking about what he thinks is going to happen. It's not uncommon to see him or her say, this or that may happen, but I'm not confident enough yet to include it in the TAF. And that's huge because that's giving you something in the back of your mind. It's not in the TAF and it may well not happen, but the forecaster's concerned enough that he's brought it up. And that's the kind of stuff that I think we're missing. And if you're equipped with those sorts of things, then when the situation starts to unravel, you have a much better idea which way it's probably going and what that means.
So moving away from weather specifically and moving towards situations where alternates start disappearing, I think this is not a situation many of us get into, certainly not on a regular basis, that's for sure. And I think we maybe I don't want to pick on the younger generation, but maybe less experienced pilots come to work with a destination and an alternate, and off we go. But when alternates start to disappear, like in the case of these Ryanair guys, do you feel that the current training environment is preparing crew for this, for the sort of rapid and sequential loss of alternates when margins are starting to tighten up? I mean, the loft exercises cover that. I've taught some lofts, and they're quite challenging when crews start going places you don't expect them to go. But maybe that's the point.
I would definitely say so. I think there's a general problem with the training across a number of areas. In fact, we just completed a book which Steve contributed a chapter to on this exact topic, that the training and what we are actually experiencing, there's a fairly substantial mismatch often. So yes, the training needs to be more dynamic and more challenging in general. And I think that the problem that we have, at least that I've seen, is that there is a strong incentive for the airlines to make the training simple enough that they have a very high pass rate, put it that simple. And that is a hurdle that is very difficult to overcome due to the cost of having a training failure. So I'll hand that to Steve. Steve's got a lot to say on this topic.
Well, in terms of the training, for sure, when we talk about alternates disappearing, there's a couple of ways it can disappear. One is the weather simply goes below minimums, and that's a true disappearance. But the more common case is the company doesn't want you to go there because they don't have any gates, or
Yes.
you don't have a company presence at that field. It's a perfectly legitimate field, but there's no company presence.
Or more recently, as we're learning in the United Kingdom, the airport operator doesn't want you to go there for the same reason.
Right. And this is where we get into some interesting conversations, because obviously you want to start your diversion planning going to the designated alternate. You want to go somewhere where the company has facilities, et cetera, et cetera. If the situation unravels sufficiently, we can get to the point where all we're looking for is a piece of pavement. And we have to kind of rank those priorities. And the captain's got to be aware that at the end of the day, he's got to make a decision. And it may not be one the company likes, but if you're on the ground, in the airplane, intact, even if you don't have any stairs to get people out of the airplane, you're safe. And that's enormously important. So we have to be a little careful we don't get too distracted by all the other priorities that get loaded into what an alternate is and when it's valid and so forth.
You're quite right. And you do see at some airlines, they'll have an alternate and also a sort of suggested commercial alternate, which is,
Right.
Here's your legal alternate to make you legal, but actually we would rather you wet here if you can.
Right.
And
Right.
I suppose that puts a bit of pressure on crew.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And it's, certainly if you make those decisions and you put the airplane on the ground somewhere, it's, and it's not where they really wanted you to go. Yeah, I mean, it can be a bit stressful, but at the end of the day, that's the job. And you really have to be prepared to make those decisions, whether the company is in favor or not. And to do that, going back to what we were talking about, you really have to know what all of the variables are. What the weather is, what the airport situation is, what the NOTAMs are for those airports. And all of that's something you can do before you fly. I mean, you really need to get boned up on that stuff and be up to date on your route and where things are at.
Gentlemen, just to, as we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here, but if I were to ask each of you to look ahead and pick one systemic improvement that you think would most strengthen the resilience of airline operations when facing these sort of widespread weather disruptions, if you could pick one systemic improvement each, what would it be, do you think?
I would really recommend the Operational Control Center work closely with air traffic control and develop much more proactive approaches to looking at these situations, and in principle, start recognizing the potential and diverting flights earlier. You don't want to wait until somebody has already tried to make two approaches into a place that it's just not going to work. I mean, you can do different things. Obviously, if it's fog over a wide area, people can land under emergency authority using autoland, even if it's 0-0. But when you have winds that are out of limits, and this kind of thing, that becomes impossible. And the Operations Control Center has to be a lot more proactive to get people where they need to be or not even launch them in the first place. In the case of a relatively short haul operation, maybe keep those airplanes on the ground. Don't put them in that situation in the first place. And I think that would relieve a lot of the pressure.
And I think my answer to that, Seth, is more philosophical, but going back to, and not to argue for my book, but clearly defining the lines of responsibility for who's responsible in this situation. And it's an interesting case in some of the work Shem and I are doing and some upcoming writing, looking at the difference in operational control between the United States, Canada, and the Europeans, and the presence or not, or lack of presence of a licensed dispatcher. and what the rules say about that dispatcher's authority. So clearly in the States, we have clear lines of authority. We have to use them. We do have problems with that from time to time. And I think that exists in other nations, other parts of the world. I'm not sure it's quite as clear, and I don't know what effect that has. But it's important for the captain to understand at the end of the day, he is the final responsibility.
Yeah.
And he's got to be prepared to act on that and use it.
Yeah, I quite agree. Steve, Shem, thank you very much for your time today. And thanks for everything you do for the Flight Ops group. You guys are major contributors and regular attendees at meetings and so on and so forth, and highly valued. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Well, that was. I think we've got to agree that was another fascinating discussion there from our flight operations group. They are the experts. They know all the right people. Our specialist groups are all volunteers, but by gum, there is some knowledge there, and they've got their expertise. So we're going to move now swiftly on to the November issue. What have we got in the November issue? I'm going to start off editor's privilege. We've got exclusive story on 40 years of Emirates. And Emirates, this global carrier, started from nothing. And we've got a story really on the Sir Maurice Flanagan archives, who was one of the founders of Emirates. He was basically given, told, here's a couple of aircraft, start it off, and don't ask for any more money. I think that was part of the legend. And here we are now, 40 years, and it's this global carrier that bestrides the world. Really, really interesting stuff of his personal archives that were donated to the Royal Aeronautical Society's National Aerospace Library. So this is written by our archivist, Georgina Townsend. She's dug out some really fascinating stuff, personal stuff from his story, including airline founder, but also playwright and poet.
Yes.
So at one point he'd written a play or something and been invited by a celebrated theatre critic and almost went into doing plays, in the 1960s. It's like it's one of the things where you just read it and you just go, what have I been doing with my life?
Yeah.
As well as doing his national service, in the RAF and airlines and what have you. It's like, playwright and poet to add to your CV. Amazing story, really fantastic article. And if you're at all interested in airlines, Emirates, aviation history, just go and read that.
I agree, Tim. Georgina's done a fantastic job with this, and she's also dug out some fantastic images from the archive. Of a young Maurice Flanagan in his national service. We've got him presenting lectures at Hamilton Place at the Royal Aeronautical Society HQ. Photographs of the founding aircraft of Emirates as well. So it's a really interesting take on a very, very interesting man who I wish I'd met.
Yeah. Right, what else have we got in there, Steve? You've tried to summarise in some tried to summarise the President's Conference. How did that get on?
I did. Yeah, well, it was a bit of a challenge. As always with our conferences, there's a plethora of interesting people. So condensing 2 full days down into 4 pages in the magazine was a challenge. There is a longer version of this actually, which is on our Aerospace Insight blog as well, which people can go and look at. But if I just give you some of the name or the job descriptions and places that people have come from that were presenting at this conference. So the conference was People in Aerospace. We've called the article Attract, Recruit, Train and Retain. So you've got people from IAG, you've got people there from Leonardo, Rolls-Royce, Capgemini, the Ministry of Defence, the RAF, IATA. So, we've got a senior guy from IATA talking about their 25 by 2025 program, trying to increase the diversity across IATA member airlines and organisations. Talks about gender parity, squiggly careers, the fact that my father's generation would start a job at 15, 16, 17, and they'd be there until they retired at 65.
Mhm.
That isn't the case anymore. People now are jumping from industry to industry, from company to company, from sector to sector. How is that affecting the aerospace world? Well, it could be a benefit. We could be bringing people in. There's a lot of effort into recruiting new people, university. How do we appeal to the next generation? Well, maybe we also need to be appealing to the current generation that is working in a different sector, whether that is oil and gas, whether that is banking, whether it's marketing, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of transferable skills that can come
Mm.
into our aerospace sector. We looked at that. One of the really interesting sectors, and this is something which I know is very close to Dave Edwards, our CEO's heart, is working together. Dave spoke on a panel at the conference, and do you know there are 140 charities doing outreach for the aerospace sector, so trying to reach young
Mhm.
people. 140 companies, organizations. And
Mhm.
invariably, they're all pulling in different directions for the same pot of money to quite often, unfortunately, reach the same people multiple times. So
Yeah.
what Dave is calling for, and we have an event coming up on the 1st of December here at the Society, is to try to bring as many of those 140 organizations together under one roof to say, what can we do? What can we do together to reach more people? And that was
Yeah.
for me one of the most powerful moments of the conference. So we got Janine Horsby from the Air League, lots of other organisations. Airability were here as well. We had Mike Miller-Smith from Airability dialed in and spoke about the work that they're doing. But what could we all do if we were all working in harmony at the same time? And
Mhm.
the closing session for me was with the next generation perspective. We've actually handed this over to Sophie Somerville Roberts to write up for the magazine. We'll talk about Sophie later. She's a UCL student who came to the conference, and for me, the standout part of that section was the debate about, do I go to university or do I go
Yeah.
down the apprentice route? So there were 4 young people on the stage being quizzed by top people from industry, and
Mm.
flipping it round and quizzing industry as well about what do you want? How can they help to bring this new generation in?
That's
And
interesting.
our president works for Leonardo. We've got 2 Leonardo apprentices there, or trainees there. So we've got Sienna Simpson, who is an engineering degree apprentice. She's in her final year. And we'd also got Reese Dibble, who's a transmissions craft apprentice, 3rd-year student. One gone down the engineering route, engineering students there as well from universities like Coventry. And the answer was, it doesn't matter which route you take the one that suits
Mhm.
you and come into an industry that can really support you and that really needs you. So, 2 really interesting days, 2 fascinating days, well attended by young people, well attended by quite vocal young people as well, in many cases.
Yeah.
So it generated some really interesting debate between the next generation of pilots, engineers, designers, and the current generation as well, as to what we can do
Yeah.
moving forward.
And,
It's
and
always good to be at a Royal Aeronautical Society conference, particularly the President's Conference, but this one I think this year was really stand out.
and
Mhm.
also on the, as well as the RS convening the kind of gathering of aero charities, as you might sort of say, or the gathering of the aviation charities, is one of the other sessions. There was Air Vice Marshal Sean Harris from the RAF talking
Yep.
about how they're going to align military licenses, engineering licenses with civil licenses. Something that has been resisted for a long time is the whole idea. Well, if you train people up to be, sort of have an equivalent civil qualification, they'll all leave for the airlines overnight.
Mhm.
But in actual fact, what he was saying is that we're fishing in the same pool, and it's giving that flexibility for people to they might decide, oh well, I'll do a few years in the RAF, could then go over to the airlines, but then I might come back, I might be I might be a sponsored reserves or something like that, or I might work on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you've got platforms like P8 Poseidon, E7 Wedgetail, they're 737s, they're airliners. They're basically
Mhm.
converted airliners. So there's a lot of crossover there. And I think that's, again, that's sort of the kind of joined up thinking where you're trying to account for these new career paths and new development, sort of new ways of working. Okay. What else have we got in there? I've got an article in there. Democratizing. Yeah.
Democrat.
So, I'll keep that in. Whatever. Democratizing. I need another.
That's the one.
I need another coffee. Democratizing SAR from space. So synthetic aperture radar. Really fascinating STAR article, talking with the people from ISI, Finland's ISI, who have completely revolutionized. These high-end spy satellites from space. The commercial satellites, and they give 24/7. Coverage of what's going on the Earth, and particularly important for peering through bad weather at night, and finding stuff like metallic objects in forests, or ships at sea that are up to kind of no good, or that sort of stuff. So really fascinating stuff, and also how they're using AI. Being an image analyst is it's a very, very human skill. It's a very, very thing you had to be trained for. It was kept at a high level. You think about something, sort of satellite experts, imagery experts in the US, where they might work. Now using AI, you can teach teach AI, teach the software to recognize things like vehicles, tanks, aircraft, ships, and classify them. And say, look, this airfield here, you've got four aircraft here. Multi-engine aircraft, and you're just therefore taking a lot of the legwork and a lot of the bottleneck out of, especially when things move. So SAR, this is sort of like the tactical kind of SAR that is useful in Ukraine. Here's a bunch of tanks in the forest, and it's something that the war fighters need to know sort of straight away. And it's bringing that information faster to them. Who's next?
I
Bella,
can
where do you
go.
go?
I think.
Yeah, bringing it back to the Middle East, there's a great article all about air taxis in the Gulf right now. So we have had an interesting year. We talked about it last month, I think, about how, we've seen, actually, it's talked about in the article, the Valley of Death, with, air taxi companies kind of going through that period of scaling up production and investing in hardware, and that has proved fatal for a lot of companies we've talked about. But this article is kind of honing in on two companies, US companies, that have kind of stood the test of time so far, Archer Aviation and Joby Aviation. And so talking about how they are kind of using the UAE as their test bed. So they're both set to start flights in 2026. I remember when that was announced at last Dubai Air Show, I think, at least for both. Yeah, one of them at least. So it's a great article kind of going into why the UAE specifically has number one taken a chance on eVTOLs, because we've seen, as Tim even mentioned earlier, we've seen Germany kind of not wanting to invest. We've seen places not want to invest in such a novel technology, but the UAE specifically has the government that can support this type of technology. And so just talking about why specifically the UAE, and I guess on the other hand, the challenge the UAE will be for these eVTOLs to withstand the heat, withstanding the pretty severe hot weather. And so looking at, what these companies are doing, their progress so far, and what the future is. And honestly, I remember, Tim, you would remember when we were there for the Dubai Air Show 2023, we were stuck in some pretty hefty traffic.
I was just mention that. Yeah, that's another driver, isn't it? As well as the pioneering and the future looking kind of welcoming kind of government and environmentally, government environment. to innovation, one thing there is Dubai traffic jams.
Yeah.
You've got a captive audience there for anybody who wants to fly quietly and zero emission above the crowds and get to where they need to be.
I mean, we almost missed our flight, but you know what? It was the traffic on top of a random flood.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It's so random. Oh
So
goodness. Anyway,
so we're looking forward, as we said, Winston, we were looking forward to going and finding out more at the Dubai Air Show in the next couple of weeks, and go and find out all the progress, the plans, certification, route proving, passenger trials, and when we can expect these. So brilliant, yeah. Steve, you've also got something on electric aviation, I believe.
I've got a GA story. I didn't have a GA news item, but I've got a GA story. This is a bit sentimental for me, actually. So we mentioned it at the start of the show about the fact that I'd met up with Ken Delve, who was the first person who gave me my first journalistic job. We mentioned Richard Noble as well, being at the RAF Club. Richard Noble was the first person I interviewed as a journalist 25 years ago. And we've got an article in this magazine from Dave Unwin, who was the first editor I worked with as well. So nice things coming full circle. So Dave has written an article for us called Are Airfields Electric? With apologies to Gary Newman. So Dave is a glider tug pilot, very experienced glider pilot, very experienced pilot, full stop. And he has looked at something called gravitational potential energy. So if you tow a glider with a fixed-wing aeroplane, you tow it up to 4,000 feet. Let's say you've got 750 kilos of mass. When you descend, that's got gravitational potential there to actually create energy. So, as Dave said, sometimes you can fly 30 tows a day. That's 22,500 kilograms of potential energy. So if you had an electric tug towing you up and you had, let's say, a reversible propeller and you could recharge on the way down, there's a huge amount of energy there that can be recaptured. So Dave's worked out that roughly 1 in 10 tug flights would be free. But he's expanded this out to look at, can we make an entirely electric airfield? So we could just, electric buggies to tow the gliders and the aircraft around. We could put wind turbines up. We could do things like that. It's a very inspiring article about what we think of electric aircraft, and we think of things like the Pipistrel. We perhaps think of something like the Taurus, which is the solar powered gliders. Some of them have now got solar panels on top of their trailers, so you can tow them to and from the airfield while the aircraft is charging in the trailer. But Dave's looked here at all the other ways that we can come up with a completely green airfield, and I think it's really, really fascinating.
And related to that, obviously, is a little bit of a flight test report, or not flight test, but an experienced flight that 4Air have been doing in the Pipistrel, which had past President David Chin fly earlier this year. He had a taste of electric flight, and in the Electro, which is like the world's first fully certificated electric aircraft in Europe and the US. And what that struck me in reporting on that is it's similar to the similar to the kind of barnstorming days of Sir Arnold Cobham's Flying Circus, where people turned up at seaside towns, Blackpool. You paid how 5 shillings or something, and people would go out and they'd have a little bit of a flight in an aeroplane, and it completely blow their mind. And next thing you know, they'd be inventing jet engines, or they'd be going off to join the RAF, or et cetera, and really and the phrase in the day was air-mindedness. In all of a sudden you had this, you were able to see your town from the air, and just get this sort of like 3D perspective that you'd never had before. And I think the more we've got things like electric aircraft or eVTOLs, and eVTOLs particularly because of the sound, how loud are these things? Is the more you get people familiar with them, the better. And what again, I mentioned that article with where David Chin had his flight is. I had to scan the skies and watch for it carefully, like a hawk, for the thing to come back because I couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
it was just so quiet. So and that's one of the main sticking points in light aviation or kind of sort of general aviation is the disturbance. How do we get around the disturbing the local community? Well, if you've got these zero emission quiet aircraft that just kind of zip in and zip out, and no one even knows you're there unless you look up. That's got to be great, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And they're cheap. They're super cheap to run once you buy them. Absolutely sort of pennies to charge them up. So it's really sort of like getting more people to experience that and look at the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So what have we got? I've got one more thing to talk about. AI turnarounds. It's another AI article. We're having more and more AI coverage. That's looking at gates, airline gates. How do you optimize turnarounds at airline gates, and using cameras there to track when when the air stairs come in, or when the gates are, the gates attached, when the catering comes in, when passengers get off, etc., etc. Try and optimize it. It's an art form. It's something that's been optimized anyway. But again, it's bringing this new level of transparency to the airline operations and airport operations, where you think of ADSB. Everyone can track an airliner now on ADSB. Now you can track some of the vehicles at airports, and now have ADSB fitted, so you can see where, if you're running a big airport, you probably know where all your ground vehicles are. This shows individual people, of individual people walking around aircraft, can mark them out, and can find these bottlenecks and find not only sort of like tactical, the day-to-day stuff, but also kind of like predict things into the future of so there's already airlines using it. It's already been rolled out about a number of airports, and just having these optimizations in, and again, there's nothing worse than you getting on a flight and you getting to the gate, and then it's like, oh no, we've got to wait 20 minutes because the gate isn't free. Not only is it frustrating with passengers, but it's also burning jet fuel and affecting the environment. So every second counts when it comes to these turnarounds. And also in this issue, we've got a great article on Gen Z and their motivation to join the military, to fight, haven't we, Bella? Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is one of my favorite articles I have read in a while, and I'm amazed that it was written by a student. So, UCL student Sophie Somerville Roberts wrote an article all about if Gen Z will fight in World War III, and kind of flipping the script of, like, I think there's a common rhetoric about Gen Z, and I can say it because I'm part of it, that they're lazy, they're not going to want to fight in a war, they don't care. And while I think some of those arguments are warranted, we are the first generation to be digital natives. She actually talks about that in this article. In fact, we are definitely not lazy, though, and I think she even talks about how we're an activist generation. We care about things, but recruiting this generation of people, I think, just has to be different. She talks about how, we and I can speak to this from myself, like Gen Z, we perceive war and terrible things that happen in our world so differently than what it would have been even just 20 years ago. And in some way, I think it makes people desensitized, but in other ways, I think it makes people even more passionate and more compassionate and want to be part of fighting, war, because they see yeah, they see the real nitty-gritty of it. They're not just seeing like kind of curated videos. They can see people literally in war zones uploading a TikTok and saying, "Here's a day in the life," which is crazy. And I think one of my favorite things she talks about is um, like we're forgetting that Gen Z has some of the most like important skills that we need in warfighting. You know, we have the ability to fact check. We don't take things as it is. Like we almost are a bit critical because we're so used to, you know, AI now and things lying to us a lot of the time. And then also like we're a video gaming generation. So we have a lot of skills that probably had to be taught a lot more that can now be transferred so much easier. So yeah, this article is just an amazing way of talking about how it's not that they're lazy, it's that recruitment will need to be different, and Gen Z don't want to be I guess encouraged to go into something that's not honest. They want to be told the truth. And yeah, it's really good. I don't want to give it all away, but it was honestly one of my favorite reads in a while.
And it is
Yeah.
available on the blog as well, isn't it? So even if you're not a member of the
Yes.
society, you can read this on our
Yeah.
excuse me, Aero Society Insight blog.
Yeah, definitely.
Great article and lots of food for thought there. So we've got the usual afterburner in this issue, Steve. We've got our book reviews. We've got diary, what's coming up, events there. If you've got branch news events from around the society, please do send them to Deputy Editor Stephen Bridgewater on stephen.bridgewater@aerosociety.com. And he will endeavour to try and fit it in, squeeze it into
as much as I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Then upcoming events, shout outs. What have we got coming up? Well, as we record, we're just about to have the RAS Light Aircraft Design Conference. That's happening on 10th of November. Should be pretty interesting. There's a lot of innovation going on at the moment there. We've got the RAS Rotorcraft Conference the day after on the 11th of November. That's all about operationalizing advanced air mobility, so eVTOLs, looking at things like infrastructure certification, something we'll be picking up at the Dubai Air Show, which is funny enough, which is next on the agenda. Dubai Air Show, 17th and 21st of November. We, myself, Steve, Roy will be out there. Covering the show, looking up for all the news. If you see us around there, do say hello. If you're a corporate partner, perhaps, and you've got news, get in touch. We're looking for all the news that'll be at the show. And also, the president will be there, Alistair Wood. So he'll be out and about at the show that week as well. We've got the RAS Aeromedicine Group Annual Symposium on 24th of November at HQ. RAS Young Persons Network Reception, 28th of November. Defence Space Conference. That is something that is an external event organised by the UK Space Command, 2nd of December. And Aerospace is a media partner with that, so we'll be along there finding out about what's new in space. Wilbur and Orville Wright lecture on 4th of December, given by Doc Winters, who is chief scientist at RTX, who'll be talking about 100 years of Pratt & Whitney this year. And then we've got one for your diaries for, well, way ahead really, isn't it, Steve? Chipmunk 80th.
Yes, so earlier this year, regular listeners may remember that earlier this year I was at the 100th anniversary of the de Havilland Moth. So this coming May is the 80th anniversary of the Chipmunk. And we've had a request from Carol de Sola, who's organising a big Chipmunk fly-in on Friday, the 22nd of May. That is the actual 80th anniversary. And it will be at Wolverhampton Airport, Halfpenny Green. To those of us of a certain age that remember Wolverhampton Airport as Halfpenny Green. Carol has so far invited 87 chipmunks, and those are the people that she has contact details for. And she has said, if you have not had a request yet, please can you phone Halfpenny Green Direct and PPR, so get prior permission to fly into that event. That will be an event that's open both to pilots and enthusiasts of chipmunks as well. So if you don't have your own chipmunk, fly in, drive in, come and join the party. But Carol has asked us to spread the word about that, which will be Friday, the 22nd of May next year.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, and that's a good shout. So finally, we're going up to the next sort of the last thing we get to. What have been watching, reading, playing, or not, as the case may be. Steve, what you've been watching anything or reading anything interesting?
Yeah, I have actually. I've been rereading a book which has just been re-released, which is about the Battle of Britain movie. So the Battle of Britain, the men and machines from the movie, which was written about 25 years ago by Robert Ruddle, a good friend Rob, when he was still alive, and has now been revisited by Dilip Sarkar, a fellow of our very own society, looking at the filming of that fantastic movie back in 1968. So very much updated Rob's original book with more information and images that have come to light, and also updating the histories of the aircraft that were used, so Spitfires, Hurricanes, and of course the Casa 211s and the Hispano Bouchons that played the Heinkel 111s and the ME 109s in the film. So a really good book. I read that while I was on my week off last week.
Mm.
Bella, have you watched Button Moon?
I did.
This is your homework we sent.
I did. The only thing I was going to say though is because you sent me a link to Button Moon.
Yeah.
Is there more to that, or is that just like one episode?
No. It was on at about 5 o'clock every day of the week.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When we were children. So
I did watch one.
Okay, and you thought
It was very
cute.
It's very cute.
I was just thinking that now that you're our new mum, that this should be a good way to get the next generation involved in space.
I know. No, I thought it was very sweet. I did really like it. And actually, speaking of, the two things I was going to say that I'm reading. So, as I said last month, the little time I get to read, and I fortunately just don't get much time to read, but my daughter loves reading. In fact, she's at the stage now where 24/7 she brings us a book and like gives us the book to read.
Can she proofread AEROSPACE for us? We could do that.
Yes, we'll get in there. We'll get in there.
She's reading AEROSPACE. Yeah,
maybe in a few months. Maybe in a few months. No, and she is obsessed with a space book I have called Luna Moona. It's written by Kelly Girardi, who I interviewed at Dubai Air Show a couple of years ago.
Oh wow, yeah.
She flew on a Virgin Galactic flight, I think a year or 2 years ago, something like that. Actually, yeah, 2 years ago. It was before the Dubai Air Show. And my friend gave it to me for my baby shower because she knew I really liked her, and Hazel is obsessed with that book. And she's also obsessed with another book called Just Like Space, and it's like little fold out things so she can see like what's on the International Space Station and everything. So that's my reading material lately.
Well, we'll be.
Tim, have you been looking at anything quite as highbrow as that, or?
Well, looking forward to 1-year-old Hazel doing book reviews for the magazine. Also,
soon
giving us a review of Button Moon. So, a couple of things from me. House of Dynamite on Netflix. So that is like a nuclear thriller directed by Kathleen Bigelow, who did 0.30. And Hurt Locker, very, very good. It's all about a missile attack at the US. I won't give out spoilers. It's on Netflix, and the National Command Authority, the decisions that are made. What do you do if there's a ballistic missile, presumably tipped with something nuclear, headed for Chicago? What do you have to do? There's a few fair things where you have to sort of suspend disbelief a little bit, and there's some people have sort of said, well, wouldn't it really happen like this, etc., etc. But very, very good in the style of there's some famous films from the 1960s, kind of Fail-Safe, Dr. Strangelove. Fail-Safe is the one that it reminded me of, where the time there was constant patrols of B-52s, and they were all sort of like going off the coast of Russia.
Yeah.
And I think in the this is dredging up from memory because I haven't watched it for a while, is one of them gets the go code to go, the others get recalled, and this one bomber keeps going on. And what do you do then? So edge of the seat thing. It's very, 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 very tense. It is disturbing in a way because it's showing the kind of command responsibility. Experts could probably pick holes in the plot here and there. But I think what's interesting is it's brought the nuclear debate back to the wider public, which has been missing for ages. So in the UK, we're now talking about arming F-35As with nuclear weapons. Albeit nuclear bombs. That hasn't been there since the late 90s. When we got rid of late 90s, mid 90s, when we got rid of Tornado. So the RAF get back on the nuclear. People now start thinking about tactical nuclear weapons and terrorists that we'd forgotten about. The other thing I'd like to mention quickly is a new book on lightning from Ian Black, English Electric Lineman, Volume 4. Obviously, Ian is a ex-Lightning pilot, very, very talented aviation photographer as well in his own right. And he's put together his latest film of the English Electric Lightning, the aerial sports car of the RAF in the 1960s, 70s. Some fantastic pictures in there. But also, the thing I really like about it is some of the vintage material that's he's using as well, like things like pamphlets, brochures, maps, badges, and things there to really sort of tell the story of the Lightning. Great read. So with that, we're going to come to the end of this episode. Where can people keep up to date? I'm still an ex-Aureus Timar. Steve, Bella, where can we find you?
Yep, I'm. Sorry.
No,
I'm on X as well. RAS Bella R2.
I'm on X sporadically as RAS Steve B, but I'm mostly on Facebook and LinkedIn as Stephen with a PH, Stephen Bridgewater.
Brilliant. So any views, questions, feedback, do send them our way. Like, subscribe, and a reminder, we're on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
And I'd just like to thank again our podcast sponsor for this episode, Xometry. Whether you're prototyping the next innovation in aerospace or scaling up for production, Xometry connects you with trusted manufacturers worldwide, saving you time and resources. Discover how Xometry can accelerate your projects at www.xometry.uk. And just to spell that out, it's Xometry, Xometry.